So then the 18th. We'll bring our meeting to order. Welcome to the September 10, 2025 meeting of the Liberty Lake Planning Commission. We'll begin with a roll call.
Joe Mann,
Here.
Tom Sahlberg,
Here.
Jim Baumker,
Here.
DG Garcia,
Here.
Charlie Jenks,
Here.
Bill Foyer,
Here.
Gene Hushel,
Here.
and Troy Mullenix.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Would you please stand and join with me in the pledge to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Under general business, we'll review our agenda. Any changes to the agenda? Do I hear a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Commissioner Jenks, and who seconds? Mr. Herschel. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Approval of the minutes from August 27th. Anybody have any changes or issues with that? Motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Commissioner Jenks, thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Sahlberg. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Next, we go to our public hearing on co-living housing code amendment.
So, given our very busy agenda today, I'm going to try and go through this relatively quickly. The co-living housing. So first of all, what is co-living housing? It means a residential development with sleeping units that are independently rented and lockable and provides living and sleeping space and resident share kitchen facilities with other sleeping units in the building. Synonyms: congregate living facilities, single room occupancy, rooming house, boarding house, lodging house, residential suites. Very slow to respond. Must allow co-living housing. So the RCW requires that we provide for co-living housing and that we must allow co-living housing on any lot that allows for 6 multifamily housing units or more. Cannot require standards that are more restrictive than that required for any other multifamily residential uses. Cannot require more than 0.25 off-street parking spaces per sleeping unit. Cannot require any off-street parking spaces if it's within half a mile of a major transit stop. And we've included the definition of those types of major transit stops that are projected to be in the city of Liberty Lake through STA's 50-year plan. And it must take effect no later than December 31st of this year. So again, the changes to the code, one amendment is we have to provide a definition. And this will be added to the definition section. We need to make changes to the zoning district matrix in the development code. And basically, so we're providing that co-living housing is a limited use in R2, R3, M1, M2, M3, which are all the zones where 6 units or more will be allowed. And because we allow multifamily in all of the zones within the River District, in the River District SAP zoning matrix, it's a limited use in all those zones. So next is the proposed amendment. So limited use standards are reflected in each of the individual zones. So we're changing the zoning for the section related to limited use regulations for specific limited uses, and specifically we're adding a section co-living housing. And the number within this, the number within each individual chapter depends upon where it is in the list on the zoning matrix for limited uses, so it varies a little bit. So that's why the numbers are all different in each zone, but it's all within the zoning chapter. And which is, paragraph 3C, and then below that, which are the required specific limited uses. So for co-living housing, we're proposing that, the co-living housing shall be subject to a provision of 0.25 parking spaces per sleeping unit unless located within 1/2 mile walking distance from a major transit stop, in which case no parking shall be required. For this purpose, major transit stop shall be defined as a transit stop providing fixed route service at intervals of at least 15 minutes for at least 5 hours during the peak hours of operation on weekdays, or a transit stop on a bus rapid transit route. We don't have bus rapid transit now, but we will. And we do have 2 routes within the city that meet the, that as of September, as of the end of this month, when the new routes go in effect, we have 2 routes within the city that do meet the 15-minute, at least 5 hours a day. And that's a requirement of the RCWs that we do that. Co-living housing shall be subject to architectural design review requirements applicable to multifamily developments within this zone. And that is, we require multifamily above 5 units to go through design review. It is an administrative process, so we meet the requirements there. All well and good. Last requirement is the special standard is that co-living housing consisting of 8 sleeping units or less shall be treated as one dwelling unit for purposes of density calculations. If co-living housing consists of more than 8 sleeping units, each sleeping unit shall be considered equal to 1/4 of a dwelling unit for purposes of density calculations. Also, something that's contained in the RCW. Why do we do up to 8 as 1 unit? Because single family, you can't count. You have to treat 8 unrelated people living in a residence as single family. So that's why the first 8 units count as one. And it's similar to what the requirements for adult living situation. So adult assisted living or whatever. So go through the procedural real quick. We did a workshop back in March of this year. SEPA notice went out on August 20th to on the web and in emails, etc., and to all the agencies. It was published in the Spokane Valley News Herald on August 29th. The comment period ended on September 9th, and I got 1 comment from Spokane County Environmental Services, the sewer district, and they said that they didn't care. Planning Commission hearing recommendation is today, September 10th, and we will workshop it with City Council on September 16th with a hearing and first read ordinance on October 7th. So the relevant comp plan goals and policies are listed within the staff report, and it is supportive of some housing and land use as well as governance policies related to the way we adopted it. Staff analysis. I wanted to go through and look at each of the requirements in the RCW because Commerce told me I had to. And we met them all.
Is Guardian Angel the only one we have currently in the city?
So that's an assisted living facility. This is co-living housing. Yes, some of it is, not all of it is.
Yeah, okay.
Co-living housing.
Gotcha.
But there's some others in single family homes that I know of. One with veterans and whatnot. But again, we don't regulate against it. The only reason why we're adopting this code, honest to goodness, is because Commerce is telling us we have to do it by.
Okay.
And they have specific standards we have to include.
Good.
So these are the standards, we met all the requirements, it's in the staff report. And so recommended findings that you, that staff, can, attest to the fact that we met the required SEPA review requirements, it's been completed, and that all public and agency notice requirements were met and accomplished in a timely manner. The public was provided the opportunity for early and continuous participation. Workshops here, public hearing today, workshop in city council, and public hearing in city council coming up. And that the public had the opportunity to submit written comments and testify at a public hearing before the planning commission. That is this today. And I have received no written comments on this. So, again, I just want to remind you, we do this annually, if not more frequently than that, but there are, city code does provide you with standards for approval. And these are the standards. Such amendment is consistent with the comp plan and is not detrimental to the public welfare. A change in economic, technological, or land use conditions has occurred to warrant modification. It is found that an amendment is necessary to correct an error. It is found that an amendment is necessary to clarify meaning or intent. It is found that an amendment is necessary to provide for a use that was not previously addressed. Or, I'm underscoring that it isn't, or those amendments as deemed necessary by the city council are deemed necessary by the city council as being in the public interest. So those are the standards that you're going to look at in your deliberations. I promise I'll bring up the screen again during deliberations so you can go through them one at a time.
Oh.
So with that, I offer for
Discussion, any discussion, comment?
We have to open it up for public hearing, but I want to make sure that
Yeah, I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone online that wishes to make input? Nope. Anyone present here that wanted to make input?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
Lisa, what do you mean by a limited use? What does that?
So
mean?
we have three types of uses in our zoning matrix. Permitted is outright permitted. It just follows these general standards. Limited uses are uses that have additional standards specific to that use. So it's still a permitted use, but we have a few extra standards that apply just to that use. And we have quite a few limited uses. But it's still a permitted use. They just have additional design standards.
Primarily design standards.
That's correct.
Okay.
And that's the standards that I showed you as the limited use standards for co-living housing.
Would we be out of bounds? I have a problem with this idea. SROs generally are a problem. Maybe not when they're built, but in the long term, they become an issue with the community. This type of housing, I think, can beget the same kind of issues for a community, depending upon where it's located and how it's managed. Do we have would we be out of bounds if we said to the state, okay, we'll adopt this ordinance, but we want an additional level of control over the permitting for these operations and structures?
It's not allowed.
So we couldn't say, okay, we'll accept this, but we'll make it a conditional use permit.
We cannot.
We cannot.
We
And
cannot.
if we do, what happens? They call out the SRO police or what?
So if not, what ends up happening is that this is a preemptive law. If this is not in compliance with the RCW by the end of the year, what ends up happening is we have to follow state code as it relates to SROs. In this case, we have put in
And
some,
this is state code.
it's a state requirement, but they're going to issue that they have a model ordinance related to co-housing. We will have to follow that one if ours is not in compliance. It puts staff in a very difficult position. It's very challenging when you have a conflict between your local ordinance and state law. And again, ultimately, when we adopt our comp plan next year, and our development codes, we have to include some language saying that we are consistent with all the requirements of state law. And so we won't, basically, our development code will not be in compliance. We will not be in compliance with the Growth Management Act at the end of this process. So again, the point in this is to meet the requirements. We don't have a lot of choice in meeting them. Let's get it out of the way. We don't have to revisit it when we're doing the rest of our development code updates next year. And we will be fully in compliance when we're done with the process.
Have you had people call into the city and ask you about sites for this type of housing?
No, but I have had someone call me and tell me that there already was one and that hasn't been a problem. The neighbors don't know about it, whatever. They just wanted to make sure that it was outright allowed. And that was the one related to veterans. And so this is a veterans home that they offer this as a way to give them an option other than being homeless. And from that perspective, I think that we can all agree that that's a good thing.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, basically what you are talking about is you would have to contact your legislator. Because this came from the legislature, not from commerce, not from anyone else. The legislature passed law, which we have to comply with. We don't have a choice. Commissioner Fourier.
One question, maybe two, depending on the answer to the first question. Earlier, you said, Lisa, that this is limited use by zone,
It's a
correct?
limited use in each of those.
Each of those zones.
Each of
And
the
I
zones.
thought I heard you say that they might be different in each zone.
It may be a different section, a sub-paragraph number in that section, because all the limited uses are listed by the order in which they appear for that zone.
So that leads me to my second question, then. There'll be a place that identifies exactly the difference between the zones.
Yeah, so in our development code, we have a chapter for each zone. And in each zone, we have a list of all we have a list of the limited use standards. We have a list of all the standards that apply to that zone,
Right.
but specifically in the front of it, we have limited use standards and conditional use standards.
Right.
And this has to be limited use. Again, I had to have a call with Commerce on what limited use meant, as you asked.
Somebody asked the question.
They did ask the question and I was able to demonstrate that it is a permitted use. We're just providing those design standards. It's a cleaner way for us to address the special standards that have to be applied to this particular use.
So each one will have its own definition
Well, the
by
definition,
zone.
well, no, they all have the same definition. The definition resides in the definition section, which is in the first chapter of the zoning code and applies to the entire
Okay,
development
the limited use portion of it. Yeah.
code. So then we have this, so we have.
So there's no difference in the different zones on how the limited uses apply.
That's correct. It's
Okay, then I
exactly the same.
misunderstood you, because I thought you
Okay,
said
exa-
that there was
yeah.
differences between the zones.
No, it's exactly the same and it is as per the RCW.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Garcia.
I'm very glad that this topic is important to many people in our community because it is long overdue in many communities, especially for veterans. And those are our heroes that have done things for us unimaginable by others, right? And they find themselves in situations, not bad ones. Sometimes they just want to live in a co-living community just like this. It's also available to students when students are matriculating through college and moving from one college to another, like my granddaughter did, from one beautiful college to another beautiful college. It allows them that affordable living with a roommate or whatever, and a group of people where they can get their studies done and then maybe move on. And then more important than that, for individuals in the city who come at a time in their life where it's a disadvantage to them to even coexist in the communities that they were living in. And makes available to any of us, all of us, even at this table, may find ourselves in a position that we didn't want and find the availability right in our community. Because if you sell here now, you can't buy here later, right?
Right.
And so it does help. It's very helpful. It should open our minds to creative thinking and to look at ourselves as maybe being the benefactors of some of these new things that, thank goodness, this is mandated and we don't have a choice. So I think it's a good thing.
Thank you, Commissioner Garcia. Can I just tack on one thing? And this speaks also to Commissioner Jenks' concern, and that is, keep in mind, we have very stringent maintenance standards that still have to be met. So those apply to co-living housing, or SROs, as you've referred to, the same as they do for a single family home.
Yes.
So the standards are the same, we enforce the same. So again, you'll see that we are proactively enforcing on those standards with everybody equally.
That's a beautiful thing.
Appreciate it.
Any other comments? Commissioner Herschel.
I have a question on density. When we talk about an ADU, 8 ADUs make up the equivalent of 1 housing unit. What is the density for a housing unit? Density meaning number of occupants that we base our decisions upon.
We don't have any rules regarding occupancy.
2-bedroom house can have 8 people in it,
Yes, whether they're related or unrelated.
okay? An ADU, same thing?
So it's based upon building code, what occupancy is allowed based on building code. So there are some limitations. Let me just say that the flip side of that is very difficult, nearly impossible to enforce on
Well, I
those
can imagine.
once the building has been built.
I see a need for some kind of clarification relative to the number of occupants per building.
We can't do it.
We meaning,
We meaning the city, the limitations that we have put on this are the limitations the state allows for us to put on them. Other than we cannot limit occupancy, and that was one of the things, criteria, we cannot limit the occupancy other than what is limited by building code. And so that is one of the standards. We do have building code. We'll look at that. If there's building code violations, if there's fire violations, that's a whole different seat. But in terms of this regulation, it's already covered by those regulations.
so fire codes could be applicable to ADUs.
Yeah.
They're applicable to all occupancies.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's a fact. Okay, that's my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
May I,
Commissioner Garcia?
do you mind if I piggyback with a statement on your question?
Fine.
In this almost 60% conservative community of Christian Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints, some families start off with 1 child and end up with 5 or 6 in a 2-bedroom, in a 3-bedroom, and for them, some of them are looking for other accommodations to move into a bigger home. So we'd have to maybe go knocking on doors if we had that kind of a thing and say, how many children do you have now and how many people are living in your room? So we wouldn't. I'm pleased to hear what I think I already knew, but it pleases me to hear that we don't have those kind of restrictions. And the best thing is that, thank goodness, we're not able to just pile on things because of personal preferences. We're not able to pile on our wants and desires. We're looking at a need, not a want, and we need this. And I can't wait, whether I sit on the commission or not, I can't wait to see our community grow in that way and welcome those communities. So thank you for allowing me to trespass on those two.
Any other comments? And we'll go back to our conclusions. And it is consistent with the comprehensive plan and is not detrimental to the public welfare. the change in economic, technological, land use conditions has occurred that warrants this change. And it's also found that the amendment is necessary to correct an error. It is also found that the amendment is necessary to clarify meaning or intent. The proposed amendment is necessary to provide for a proposed use that was not previously addressed. And the proposed amendment is deemed necessary as being in the public interest. Any other comments? I entertain a motion for a vote. Commissioner Garcia moved. Is there a second? Commissioner Herschel, second.
Up there, if you
All right.
state that.
And yeah, what this says is, I'm not going to read it, but the highlighted part is approved, approved with modifications, or not approved. So is the motion to approve it? Is that correct?
Yes.
Is that correct with the second? Okay. Then all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. So the motion is passed. Unanimous or one nay, one. All right. 6-1.
Thank you. And so I will have the, findings and conclusions and recommendation brought back to you at your next, commission meeting for ratification. And just a reminder that, it's just a record of what happened at this meeting, so.
So we'll move on to our workshops. Parks Plan update.
Going to stop my share so Evan can do his share.
All right, I think that's my cue. Good afternoon, commissioners. My name is Jen Dial. I'm here with SCJ Alliance, the project manager, helping the city update the Parks and Rec master plan. I've been out here one other time to kind of give you a kickoff and introduction to the plan, and today I'm here to tell you the progress we've made and kind of give you an overview of where we're at. And I think you all received a draft of the plan in your packets. So hopefully you've had a chance to take a look. I know there's a lot in there. So I'm going to go over kind of high level of what's in it, and then we'll have time for questions and things too.
Good.
So this slide here is just showing you kind of what the project timeline was, just to give you a sense of where we're at in the process. The green check marks indicate those first 3 steps of the plan are done. We're finalizing the demands and needs analysis now and working on the goals and objectives and recommendations. So those are in progress. In fact, I think some of the goals and recs Lisa may have shared with all of you, and we'll be looking forward to some of your input on that as we finalize things. But the idea was to have this all wrapped up in another about 6 weeks. So we are nearing the finish line on this. So this is a great time to get your input on it. This just outlines kind of what the process was for updating the plan. You know, we looked at the community itself and really wanted to make this plan unique and tailored to the needs of Liberty Lake. We did a full inventory of your system and all of your facilities. We did a lot of outreach over the summer. Then we really looked at the outreach to help us determine, well, what are the demands in the community? And from there, that's how we're developing the goals and objectives. And then a bulk of the report is going to be the appendices. So if it looks thick to you, that's why. Next slide. So here's just the kind of the contents of what's in the plan, just to orient you. We've got some of the state requirements for parks planning and for integration with your comprehensive plan. There's that demographic profile of the community, the full inventory. We did individual park profiles for each of your facilities. We looked at recreational programming, your art inventory in the community. We've got a summary of the public outreach, and then kind of the meat of it is that demands and needs analysis. One of the things that we're trying to work on as part of this process, knowing that the last parks plan was done quite a few years ago, is really look at the vision and make sure that the vision of the community is well represented in the recommendations that come out of this process. I don't know, Lisa, if you were able to share with them a vision memo at all as part of their packets. No. So that's something we can share later. But essentially, we looked at the previous Parks Plan vision statement, the outcome of the engagement we did over the summer, the vision from the comprehensive plan. And then that's the first vision statement you see bulleted there, came from kind of a look at those three things. And then the last two bullets came out of the visioning exercise you all did as part of your community survey that was represented in the city's strategic plan. So those are kind of the three that we're looking at right now as potential. So your feedback will be welcome on that. I can share that visioning memo with Lisa after this, and she can send it to all of you, and you'll have an opportunity to kind of weigh in on that. So the community context is that first part of the plan, and we did a pretty deep dive into just kind of the historical context of the community. We spent a lot of time looking at population trends and forecasts. You'll see in that table there, I know the numbers are small, but you know, roughly right now you're all around the 13,000, 14,000 population mark, but we're looking out at a 20-year planning horizon, trying to make sure that your park system meets the needs of the community when you're getting close to 22,000 people. And so we looked at the current demographics and what some of the demographic trends are and how that affects the different amenities and facilities you might want to put into the community. Next slide. So some of the key takeaways from that process, like I said, you know, if we're looking out 20 years, you're expected to grow to almost 22,000 people in the next 20 years. So that's a significant impact on your current park system. We did notice some trends that about 31% of the population is under 18. So a lot of youth and families in your community. So when you think about the types of parks that you offer, that's an important consideration. And then that's looking at current population, but in 20 years, that 30% will no longer be under 18, you know, so you have to kind of look at the full spectrum of that. What are the needs of the communities now, and what are they going to be as you grow? We also noticed a trend for some multi-generational households, and there was a lot of families with larger household sizes living in Liberty Lake. So what are the needs of those community members? You do have a percentage of your population that have disabilities. So thinking about accessibility in your park system and just inclusive parks. And then large part of your workforce is coming from outside the city. So what kinds of recreational amenities are available for those people that maybe spend the bulk of their day here, but might not live here? So those were some of the things that came out of that process. This map, and I know it's too small to really see on this slide, but you should have a copy in your report as well. But this is meant to be a full inventory of the various parks within your system. So it looks at the various classifications that we made for your parks. You've got pocket parks, you've got neighborhood parks. So pocket park is anything, you know, under 3 acres. Your neighborhood parks is supposed to be that 5 to 10 acre. Community parks is the next step up. Special use is where some of your golf courses are categorized, and then natural areas. And then we looked at your trails and bikeways.
Yes, one of them River District talked about. River Rock Park.
I know. And Lisa pointed something else out about a golf course on this map. So thank you for that. Yeah, it's our GIS folks are actually working on it today. I just didn't get it in here yet. Yeah.
So you might have answered this before, but do you include HOA parks?
We do. We
And
do.
where are they identified?
They're identified as not city owned and as HOA parks in the inventory. So we did kind of an analysis of where are the city owned parks, where are the privately owned parks, and then what are the other publicly owned amenities in the system.
If I may, they are the maroon spots on this map. It's hard to see them. It's small,
It is.
but because they tend to be more like pocket parks.
Yeah, it's hard on a map like this because you have to zoom out far enough to show the full city limits, and then those pocket parks that are only an acre in size, they get pretty small on the map. But we have an individual map for each park later in the plan that we can look at those HOAs more closely. But overall, the inventory and system map shows 19 parks, about 500 plus acres of parkland. And that includes both the city-owned HOA and private parks. One thing I do think is interesting, and we can maybe talk about this more later when we have more time, but the open space zoning currently is indicated in that kind of olive green color. But I don't know that those are necessarily being used as you would think of a typical open space being used for a recreational amenity. So that could be something we talk about in terms of zoning and, you know, how that's characterized in the parks plan.
Yeah, and I think that if I may add, looking at those as opportunities for potential. And I
Yeah.
think that there is some discussion about a trail that would follow the open space along Liberty Lake Road.
Okay.
And there are opportunities for some passive recreation
Mhm.
in old landfills. Once the current facility manager with Spokane County retires.
Okay, great. Well, that's good to know, because we did hear that from the community feedback that there was an interest in having access to more just natural space for kind of a passive experience, because a lot of the parks you have now have more like programmed space. You know, there's a playground and you're there to really recreate versus maybe just sit and read a book or enjoy nature. Next slide. And so then we went actually out and did a site visit, went to each of your parks, and we did a full inventory and a condition assessment of what's in the park, and then averaged that and weighted it with some of the asset maintenance costs to give each park an overall rating score. And we used the rating methodology recommended by the National Recreation and Parks Association and our state Recreation and Conservation Office. They recommend a 5-to-1 rating scale. 5 being, hey, this park's looking great, it's brand new, everything's good to go. You've got a 20-year lifespan on stuff, you don't need to do anything, all the way down to 1 where, you know, you probably need to maybe close the park and get all new equipment. So we gave you an assessment on each of your parks. And so this is what you'll see in your plan E for each park. We have a description of kind of some of the history of how the park was acquired or donated to the city, what some of its amenities are, what it's known for in the community. We have a map that shows where all the different facilities and amenities are. And then we have a full inventory list of like how many benches, what kind of condition is it in, etc. And then that overall rating score. Next slide. We did the same thing for your recreational programs, because there's one thing to look at the park system itself, the physical park, but then also the programming that's available to the community can make a huge difference in the quality of life as well. The table you see on the right there are recommendations from the NRPA Association for the types of programming that should be made available in a community of this size. So we looked at that as kind of a benchmarking spectrum. I want to add a column to that table that shows how many of those programs are available in Liberty Lake. So you could just see at a glance, here's what NRPA recommends, and here's what you have in Liberty Lake. So I am going to update that table with that. And then this map is looking more broadly outside of just Liberty Lake, because the truth is, you have the hub not far from here, you have a YMCA not far from here. So Liberty Lake doesn't have to offer everything within its city limits. So we're trying to look at what does the region itself offer the community. So this shows some of those other additional open space, natural areas provided by the county, and some of those recreational amenities provided in the valley. Because you have a Parks and Arts Commission, which is a really unique thing, and not every city has that. We also wanted to look at your art inventory. So we have an image of all the various art pieces, where they're located, which goal within the Arts Commission strategic plan do they meet, what is their condition, what is their value, that kind of thing. And then we developed park summaries. So you have a map with an icon for each piece of art, where it's located in the park, We have different icons indicating what type of an art piece it is. Is it a sculpture? Is it a functional piece of art? Is it a box wrap? And just to help kind of visualize the inventory. We did a bunch of engagement over the summer. I don't know, I think some of you came to our kickoff event, but we did a bunch of pop-ups in various parks throughout the community as well. So that table on the bottom there just shows all the different events we went to and where we were at. Those are images from the events themselves. And then the image on the side is our flyer advertising our initial kickoff event. Kind of the key takeaways from, we did a summary of all the engagement. So the staff interviews, the community survey that we did, where we had over 300, I think, and 50 responses from the survey. So pretty successful online engagement effort. And then all the pop-up events, we summarized that and tried to find, well, what are we hearing overall in terms of themes from the community? We heard interest in expansion of the park system to include ample access to parks and youth sports fields. We heard an interest in a dog park, more benches, restrooms, shelters, and space for large events. We heard an interest in some additional wayfinding, like signage at the parks. Some folks were concerned about the shared uses on the pickleball courts and the conflict that that can create. An interest in new LED lighting, but we didn't really hear a lot of safety concerns from the community at all, just to let you know, there's not a lot of vandalism that we're hearing about or safety concerns. Yeah.
In the survey information, there's a lot of commentary about aquatics or swimming, but that's not in this chart here. That seems like a little bit of a disconnect.
It definitely came up, a lot of interest in water play and water sports. We heard kind of mixed reviews on the pool. Some folks really want it, some folks don't. So these are just kind of the top 5 things that popped up through some of those. But the survey results itself have a kind of another prioritized list that I couldn't fit all on this slide, but you're right. I mean, I can provide a more summarized kind of take context from the community about aquatics, if you guys would be interested in seeing that.
But again, that's contained in the report.
It is, yes. The full survey summary results are in there, and literally all of the narrative comments are in the appendix too. Mm-hmm.
And that was my question, follow up to Jim's. 11.2% said they wanted youth baseball fields on your survey, but that's not what this chart said or what you're saying here. So do you expect the people that gave you verbal feedback didn't participate in the survey?
In some cases, like at the pop-up events, people, participated with sticker dot exercises, voting on specific things, and didn't necessarily do the survey. Sometimes they did both. So there's some overlap there. We did hear an interest in more youth sports fields.
Contrary to
the 11% there. Yeah, that was one of the activities on one of the sticker dot boards.
anyways,
Yeah.
Well, that is the #1 bullet up there.
I know it. That's why
Yeah.
I made a note of it. I brought that chart with me.
Yeah, because he's saying, the survey only shows 11%.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, just to piggyback on what he just said, Commissioner, for you, it depends on who was at whatever event, and that type of demographic is going to choose something. It does not mean that it's contrary to the written survey. It only means that this group responded in this way. So your job or your opportunity is to pull those together at some point. But I like to see the varying opinions at the pop-up versus in a survey, because we have all ages out here, and it just makes a total difference. Are you checking, and I don't know if this is part of it, but when we're looking at aquatics and swimming pools and things like that, the insurance that comes with that? Because insurance companies are less likely. They don't really want to insure swimming pools. The liability is so great.
Yeah.
So, personally, I would say, if you can find out from major insurance companies, or, what does that look like? Because insuring something like this is maybe one of the reasons we haven't gotten something like this long ago. when it was
It's a
voted off
very
the street.
expensive investment for a city to develop and then to maintain. There's no doubt about that. And the community doesn't always necessarily have that context. And, you know, so I think if you wanted to have a serious conversation with the community about aquatics, educating a little bit on the costs and the maintenance needs. You know, we're working with the city of Spokane Valley right now too, and they inherited the county's old pools, and there's so much deferred maintenance. The cost to improve those pools is just you know, is crazy. And I don't think the community necessarily knows that. They just want to go in the summer and cool off, you know? Yeah. Yeah, and so this is just some 5 takeaways, but for a deeper dive on some of the analysis and the survey results, I recommend looking in there, and some of those top categories will pop up. And what we haven't done yet is develop recommendations based on the summaries. So I don't mean to imply that these are necessarily our final recommendations, but just some things for you to consider. And then we looked at NRPA. They pull data from, you know, different communities across the country. And so we use some of their data to do a peer community comparison, and look at just how does Liberty Lake stack up to other cities of similar size, both at the 13,000 population level and then at that 20,000 population level. So that as you develop your level of service standard, you kind of have a sense of, you know, are we on track here? Are we meeting the needs that other communities are looking at? And so you'll see some of that analysis in the report. We also tried to pull data from some of our nearby communities, like looking at Airway Heights, looking at Cheney. We're in the process of refining that data. Unfortunately, what communities provide to NRPA is voluntary, and it's not always the most accurate. And so we're having conversations with those cities to get the most accurate data for you. So you'll see that go into the next iteration of the plan. I think what's going to be helpful, particularly for this body, for all of you to consider, is these watershed maps. So the green circles that you see around the 3 parks here are what's considered a 10-minute watershed map. That's roughly a half-mile walk from the park to the neighborhood. Ideally, for quality of life standards, you know, many believe that having a park within a 10-minute watershed from a neighborhood is really an ideal kind of quality of life standard for a community. So we did multiple watershed maps for you. And then what I'd like to do in the next iteration is then to make a map of where the service area gaps are, so that you don't have to do that yourself.
When you do that, are you going to consider population density?
We sure can.
My suggestion would be to consider it at build out, and we do have some information on that.
Okay.
Because I really think that that's an important aspect of it.
Yeah.
And like looking at it right now, I think that where I really see a gap just is like in the Trutina area, in areas where we already have density.
Yeah.
I think that but I also know that in the southeast quadrant of the city, or southwest, excuse me, the southwest quadrant of the city, we're going to see a substantial increase in density over the next 20 years. And that is an area where there is a dearth of parks, but we don't really have any population density there to speak of at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point. We also did this for your HOA parks. I mean, they certainly are serving the communities that they're in. You know, they're not necessarily accessible by the full public, but they are serving those neighborhoods where they exist. We're going to do watershed maps around the school too. They serve the community, even though they're not necessarily a city-owned establishment. And so I'm hoping to overlay the various watershed maps, and then we can pinpoint, well, where are the areas that even when you consider all of these things together, they're still not served by a park.
And FYI, that is data that we will also use in our sidewalk master plan.
Yes. Next slide. And so this slide starts to go into some of that level of service. The National Recreation and Park Association has kind of some standards for how many acres of community parks should you have per 1,000 residents, how many neighborhood parks, how many pocket parks, etc. You're doing pretty good in terms of pocket park availability. We talked about kind of the open space caveat. You do have open space zoned, fair amount of acreage in it. It might not necessarily be programmed in a way that's functioning like a natural area for the community right now, but there's potential. Doing great on trails. The reason the community park is in red is because your community park is a little bit small for a community of your size. The NRPA standard would have you have a community park closer to 50 acres. When you look at how big Liberty Lake's going to get in the next 20 years. And then your closest park to a neighborhood park, I think, is just under 5 acres. And those neighborhood parks are typically like a 5 to 10 acre size. So that shows you kind of what type of park you might want to consider where those service area gaps are. And then I think this might be our last slide. The next thing we're doing is looking at, you guys are also working on your comprehensive plan, and many of the elements in the comp plan are relevant to your park system. So we're looking at the goals and policies from your comp plan and from the last parks plan to see what's been done, what needs revised, what's still relevant, what needs to be updated to meet state requirements, etc. And I think you all have a packet with you today, and you can either, I have business cards here, you can email me directly with comments that you might have on the goals and recommendations, or you could send them to Lisa and Lisa could forward them to me.
Absolutely. Just to give you all a context too, and I think this is really important to understand. So this Parks and Recreation Plan is a standalone plan, but it is also going to be adopted by reference in our comprehensive plan. And we will have in comprehensive plan, our parks element is basically going to be an executive summary of this with the goals and policies carried over. Also the level of service standards carried over, and a summary of the inventory. So, and the implementation plan. So, again, we will have a parks element that will be basically an executive summary of the full plan, but then we will reference the plan. We will adopt the plan by reference as part of our comprehensive plan. That makes sense.
Thank you, Lisa. Any other questions? I think that's my last slide, right? Yeah. Any other questions or comments or feedback from the commission?
I just have one. The final parks plan is going to be a condensed version of what we've recently received, or is that it? This 280 some odd pages long.
I know. Right now, there's a lot of pictures. We had someone from our staff come out with a drone and they did a lot of lovely photos. So right now it's pretty photo heavy too. We can certainly minimize the number of photos to condense it.
City operating document for a while. I just tried to pull it up on my phone and the file's too big to even download it.
Yeah.
So
the survey results are in what you have right now, and that's, I don't know, maybe 100 pages of it.
it's a lot.
So we could make that as an appendix.
Typically what we would do is we would have the document proper in a reduced file PDF and it would be available online, and then we would have all of the appendices as separate documents. So it will be more manageable from an electronic standpoint. I think that it's important to have the complete document, but as I said, for purposes of the comp plan is going to be the same meal.
No, I understand. The surveys, for example, it's a snapshot in time. It's not something you can rely on 10 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And that is one of the things that we've said all along with the last parks plan was just that. And it's so old that it is very dated and that was one of the reasons why we felt it was important to go through this process, particularly because it's going to feed into the 20-year capital facilities plan. So this is a critical path for us in the comp plan, even though we're only gonna adopt the plan by reference and just include an executive summary in our comp plan.
Yeah,
That's all I have. Thank you.
okay, thank you.
So Lisa, just a few comments. So what I thought I heard you say is that in the comprehensive plan, there'll be a condensed version of this report,
An executive summary,
an
yes,
executive
with
summary.
specific items that are required from a comp plan perspective. And staff will skinny it down for that purpose.
And this will remain as a standalone document.
Yes, and it will be it will be appended to incorporated by reference into the comp plan. So
Okay.
it still becomes part of the comp plan. It's like an appendix. I'm not gonna call it an appendix because it's too big.
When I first came down to pick up my package for today's meeting, I got this report. And I thought to myself, are you kidding me? And this is the parks element? Okay, now I understand, I get it. Yet I still have a few comments with regard to the amount of data that's in this document. As I read through this, I was thinking to myself, I think I've read this stuff on population, demographics, income and housing and education before in other reports from SJC,
Yes.
Mhm.
right? Okay, now, let me finish my thought so I don't forget it, because at my age, that happens, okay? So I guess my question is, instead of reiterating all this hard data, can't you just summarize it and or put it in an appendices? Because when Bubba comes down and picks this up and says, gee, I think I'm gonna read the parks plan for my city today, he's gonna look at this and say, now maybe I'll throw it in the rubbish.
Can I?
We need to
Absolutely.
condense this so it's
Absolutely.
something that's easily readable for the average Joe.
Well, so I think that we can do that. We can achieve that with an executive summary. I think and that's what, but at the same time,
Even as a standalone document, I think you need to do that.
all right, but I want to make a point here, and that is that there are requirements within RCO, which is the grant source. Our plan has to check all the boxes for RCO. So, and that's a different agency from Commerce. I'm dealing with Commerce. The
I'm
parks
not going
folks,
to contravene that. I'm just saying,
right,
in terms of formatting and making it easy for Joe resident to understand what's going on here. This needs to be summarized in many sections, conclusions provided that are clear and concise, so that someone can get this doc. Don't delete anything. Leave it all in here, but condense it so it's easily readable and digestible. Otherwise,
Wasn't that what the executive summary's gonna do?
exactly.
Yes,
it should do.
we could, for the demographic profile, for example, because it is a lot of charts, it takes up a lot of pages. It could be an appendix of the parks plan. And then, when you open it, you get right to the park stuff
Sure.
rather than the community
That's what people
context
wanna read
report.
about.
If you all want to do that.
And we're doing a lot of that with the comp plan. You guys have gotten a lot of technical reports that are requirements that are going to be just referenced in the body of the document and appended to it. In fact, we're at a point where we're trying to do appendix management, honestly, because there's a lot to try and keep this, and it's still gonna be a big document.
You have the plan done in the appendices. I mean, it could be
But,
multiple documents.
yes, and that's because we have a lot of boxes to check with Commerce.
Well, okay, but it can be compressed. That's my only comment.
Yes, sir.
May I make a
Commissioner
comment? I do a lot of technical research. And from standpoint now of the use of AI to analyze a document, almost every document that I'm researching has a small section where you can get an AI summary. You just press the button. And it does an AI analysis of just
Mhm.
about anything. You can get an AI analysis of the Bible if you like. And so that would help simplify some of these things for the average Joe who wants to spend time on his cell phone at the park.
I think his name is Bubba.
But there are a lot of very smart Bubbas out there
Yeah.
who want the whole thing and nothing but the whole thing. So perhaps the whole thing can be available at City Hall and they can come and say, I'd like to look at the XYZ and sit and read it or ask for copies.
In the park.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Well,
You
and
know,
there are several members of the city council that unless they see the numbers, they won't vote on it. So
exactly.
they won't take an executive summary. So I
Yeah.
get that. But I think what we're debating here is all of it is important. It's just how do we present it so that people can understand it? And how do we present? I used to serve on the Board of Equalization for the county to hear property tax appeals. And the criterion for all those arguments was it has to be clear, cogent, and convincing. And
Hmm.
that's what we have to do here. This has got to be very clear. It's got to be cogent, which means it's got to hold together. And it's got to convince people that this is what we ought to be doing.
Mhm.
yeah.
So, yes.
My only comment would be very well done, very well illustrated. I think that it was inclusive and thorough, and I know that that doesn't fit clear and concise and all the rest of it. But I think that the work that was put into this, there are places where the inventories and things are things that if anybody does, if Bubba does come in, that he'll be able to find where all the art is, where a description, especially as we start talking more about walkable communities and everything, why we're not necessarily right now at the maybe 5-minute mark, which is another standard,
Mhm.
which we have in most of the HOAs. So
Okay,
I think it's well done.
yeah. Yeah,
Second that, it's incredible. And, of course, I don't have the printed copy in front of me, but, good work. And anybody listening, I think, more people in the city get it when they look at it and see it and read it. And we're really not teaching them much. We're really not teaching them much, although members of commissions and councils always think, the everyday guy doesn't get it. The everyday guy is sitting as a commissioner. It was an everyday guy who got selected. So, as Tom said, Commissioner, thank you very much. I second that.
thank you.
I
Yep,
will
nice
say
job.
too, I will say too, that, one of the big benefits of this is all of the GIS data that SCJ has developed as part of this comes back to the city and becomes part of our GIS library, which is really, really valuable. We're working very hard to build that right now.
Yeah. Yeah, and I just want to say one last thing about RCO, that a couple of the things they look for when you apply for a grant, if you do, for competitiveness, they look at that public engagement. That's the biggest weighted criteria in the parks category. So having a really thorough engagement summary will be a benefit to you at that point. Even if we put it in the appendices, at least you'll have it. And then that inventory assessment to show where the service area gaps are, that's the next biggest criteria in terms of scoring well with RCO. So that's partly why that's so thorough in there, is to set you up for success with that. And then hopefully, this is something that can help the community make those capital improvement program decisions and identify where the priorities are. And that's not something this plan is in our scope necessarily to do that right now, but as you guys move towards that, hopefully you can look at this as a reference guide and say, oh, well, based on this, it's clear we need 3 new playgrounds, or, help you make those community investment decisions. Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
How soon for the recommendations? When will we get final product?
We have, Jen will actually be coming back to the planning commission to present the final plan on October 22nd.
I better put that on my calendar.
Yeah, I mean, if it changes, let me know
No,
because but-
I'm teasing. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Have
you
a
very
good
much.
night. I'm just going to leave my business cards in case folks.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Thanks.
We'll move on now. The sign code is rearing its ugly head again. So we shall move to our workshop on sign code, and we have a kind of an overview from our secretary.
Well, I just want to, actually, I'd like to, turn it over to Oniza from Burke, and we also have Michelle online. They'll be sharing their screen. I think we're going to try and pick up where we left off. There were a few changes based upon the feedback that we got so far, and we left some placeholders for some additional conversation. But I think it would be worthwhile for us in the time that we have to try and get through the rest of the sign code. We do have another workshop scheduled for October 8th, where I think that we're gonna take a deeper dive into it. This has been, staff needs some time to review the revisions. This has been felt very rushed in terms of the reviews and whatnot. And so, one of the thoughts that we have, and we'll talk about this a little bit more later on, but the thought is that after that workshop on the 8th, I think we're gonna slow it down. And I think that one of the things that we'll have to do as a city staff is go back and spend some time with the stakeholders group and get their input. And again, I think what's important to this community is that this not come forward until it's ready. And so I want to make certain that the stakeholders and you commission members know that we won't bring it to hearing until it's ready to come to hearing. So with that, I'll turn it over to Onisa so that she can take us through the rest of the document.
Thank you, Planning Commission.
We're having,
Today. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me all right?
no,
No.
it's kind of garbled, Onisa. I don't know if there's anything you can do to improve the sign side.
Yes, I can. So I'm just gonna give me a minute.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
That sounds much better. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Sorry about that. I forgot that my system had this trouble sometimes, so. All right, so let's go with that, and I appreciate your time, and you have a full agenda today, so thank you for your patience. So sign code is very we understand that it's very technical and a lot of information. So what we will do, we will just go over briefly, just go quickly over the major issues like Lisa mentioned, and then hopefully you have some time to go through the sign code already. So we will just pick up where we ended last time. So let's just go to that. This is the section where we stopped at our last meeting. So Michelle, if you could zoom in a little bit. Yeah, so we were discussing about temporary commercial sign general standards. Just to give you an overview, how we had structured it is that we had commercial and non-commercial, and then under commercial we have permanent and temporary, and non-commercial we will have permanent and temporary. So we had gone through quite a bit, but we are here in this table now. Thank you, Michelle. Let's scroll down. So we were discussing, if you remember, go up a little bit. Yeah, so we were discussing about commercial banner sign. We had a discussion about the duration, and we discussed 180 days. So that we discussed. And then if we scroll down, we also had feather sign. We discussed feather sign, and we were at sponsorship signs. So Lisa, I wanted to ask you so we had a note here about discussion on feather signs. So if the commission wants to discuss feather sign further.
So again, and I think this was the question that we had left off on at the last meeting is, so first of all, one of the challenges that we see is that the definition for feather sign and flag are very similar. If one read the definition, you'd say that's a flag. The other thing that is that, again, our concern with feather signs and why they were on the prohibited list is because you typically don't see one feather sign. You see a bunch of feather signs.
Just like you don't see one pennant, you see a bunch of pennants. And, again, commercial flags are different. We don't regulate governmental flags, but commercial flags are a different beast. And so the question becomes one of, is it simpler at the end of the day to limit these to one per site or to just prohibit them altogether? I think that pennant signs and banners, banners like the, you see over a used car lot or something like that. Those are almost of the same category as the inflatable man signs. In my mind, I'm asking a question. We banned the inflatable man. We have in the past banned the feather signs. The question is, and again, the reason why we had it here is because flags were allowed. Again, because we don't regulate commercial flag or governmental flags. The only thing we're talking about here are commercial flags. Do we allow them? Do we not allow them? It's just a question, but I think it's one that for consistency in the aesthetics, you might want to consider.
Yeah, it wasn't available for prior discussions, but why did you decide to ban the inflatable signs?
When the sign code was written back in 2005, maybe?
But
2003.
why? I'm just asking why were they banned?
Because they're cheesy?
Okay. No, that's
Fair enough.
no.
They scare dogs.
That would be my assumption. I wasn't here when it was adopted, but that would be my assumption.
I just wondering, I don't disagree with that, but I was wondering if there was something more substantial or substantive other than somebody's view that they're cheesy.
So the sign code, one of the main purposes of the sign code is aesthetics and safety. It's not a safety issue, so.
It is a
Jim-
safety issue. We did talk about that.
It's distraction.
It's a distraction when you're driving.
Okay, then, so that,
That's its purpose.
And a series of feather signs are the same.
so then,
Yeah.
And I know you haven't been with the city since the original code was adopted, but in your experience, can you ballpark how many times this has been a point of contention with businesses as far as we have to enforce and ban these things because they've put them up?
Since I've been here, the last 8 years, once.
Okay. Is there a possibility to just group everything commercial together as one to include all types of signs and then to say you can have X amount or of these combined instead of trying to separate this out and regulate even more? Is there a way to do it? Because it is a safety concern. It's distracting whether it's an inflatable wacky man or a banner or a flag or whatever it is.
That's why I've kind of consolidated them and we can deal with this separately. Again, the code is set up to treat commercial signs differently from non-commercial signs
Right.
because we don't have the content neutrality requirement with commercial signs. But again, so the question becomes one of, and I just wanted to ask the question, is if it makes sense, again, flags and pennants were allowed, feather signs were not, inflatable man was not. We kept the inflatable man. We put the feather sign in this list because it's indistinguishable in definition from a flag. So if you're going to allow the flag, commercial flag, you need to allow a commercial feather sign. But you could limit the quantity if you did that. The alternative is to just say, we don't really need feather signs, flags, or commercial feather signs, flags, or pennants. It's a question, but it's an internal consistency thing that I think is kind of important.
Did any of the commercial stakeholders advocate for these feather flags?
No.
The problem, again, the code, our code, some of this is based upon our code and it wasn't something that came up previously. Our previous code allowed for flags. It didn't differentiate between commercial and non-commercial or governmental and so I will say that, that's number one. My problem is that when I look at the definitions, a feather sign meets the definition of a flag, and a flag meets the definition of a feather sign. So either they both go or they both stay. And pennants are in a similar category, you know.
I would debate whether the feather signs are a safety hazard. Why are they used? They're a relatively new method of advertising, are they not? And they're used to get attention. One will get nobody's attention. So that's why they use multiple ones. And so I am not in favor of limiting the number. I think if a business wants to get attention, they have that right. And what we're saying is, no, you don't. You got to find a different way. This is a relatively inexpensive and a good way to get attention. And frankly, I have never heard of anybody having an accident because they were looking at a feather sign. Agreed.
Well, I'll add one comment to that. They look temporary. They're not permanent as well.
Correct.
So I would be in favor of Commissioner Mance.
You know, you're going to use them for a grand opening or a special sale or something like that, and then they're gone. So I'm not in favor of limiting them at all.
Unless
That's
a
just me.
used car dealership.
Yep.
We don't have any used car dealerships here, so, yeah. I mean, they're all the time up on a used car, but we don't have that type of business here.
Let's just leave it as is.
Okay,
Mhm.
I
all right,
agree.
that was, again, that was the reason for the discussion, though. I just wanted you to know that we moved something from prohibited into it. And then the question was, which it could go either way.
Yeah.
I like it.
All right. Okay, so that was one discussion point. So Michelle, let's scroll down. I thought we had sponsorship sign, and then let's go. I think this entire table has standards, and as we go through below that we will see. So our intent or approach is that we would go through all the blue text, those are new additions, and all the black text, those are existing one. And red strikeouts are what we have deleted from your existing code. So let's scroll through. So this section is generic section about material, duration of signage, and then sign placement standards. And then if we go at the bottom of this, temporary commercial sign requirements. So this is where we have listed all the temporary commercial signs. So these are the list of all those signages. And then at the next section, if we scroll down, we have all the examples of different signages, and these are sign-specific standards. So if we stay on that page, yeah.
Second, so the question is, did anyone have any comments or questions for materials, duration, or sign placement before we get into the specific sign types?
Yeah.
I wanted to go back to the chart. 3 open house signs are not enough. I spent 23 years as a realtor, and open house signs have 2 purposes. One is to bring the public from an arterial to a home that's open. And 3 signs won't be enough in our community. It's very difficult to get people with fewer than 6. I had 12 because the other reason for those signs is advertising for the agent. And I can tell you, I put out 12 signs with balloons, helium balloons attached to them every time I did an open house. And I did 4 open houses every weekend. And people said, I see your name everywhere. And so it's self-promotion as well as directional. So I would object very strongly to limiting it to 3 signs. The city of Spokane went through this when I was president of the Association of Realtors, and we fought it, and they ended up limiting it to 10. So the same reasons is we are inhibiting a realtor's ability to do their business. for what it's worth. Other comments?
So what's the number that doesn't become clutter then?
Well, I would say no less than 6. No less than 6. I can tell you, a new realtor, when they go with a company, they get 6 A boards. Open house signs, every one of them. So that's just my opinion, but I'd like to hear from other people. I mean, I used it as a marketing tool, and I never had a problem with it, other than having them stolen from time to time. People love using them for yard sale signs.
I
Commissioner Garcia?
thank you. I don't have a problem with that, limiting the signs. I just want us to be, aware that other people may state, well, how come I can't advertise my CPA business? How come I can't advertise my dog grooming business? Well, why can't I do that? So we want to stay out of the how come I and why can't I? Oh, am I supposed to talk into this thing? We want to stay away from how come I can't, for the very same reasons that we would let someone else be able to, because advertising is advertising. And so when we think about this, let's look at limiting the number, even if we say okay, limiting the number so that 2 things can happen at once. And then on occasion, if a CPA is working from home, they don't have any outside appearance of where this is, that they may be able to, maybe they have an open house or something. Let's just be, it's about fairness more than anything else. And I agree to you, you couldn't get your name out there, but we can't pick an industry that we don't mind them getting their name out there without trying to not be so selective. Just that thought.
Understand, but who else is going to want to put out directional signs in a neighborhood?
I don't know.
We have to be content neutral, right?
Not on commercial, not on
Non-commercial.
commercial.
Understand that.
So, there may be, we haven't come across it yet.
We have a question from one of the people who's online, if they can comment on it. Are we
Yeah,
just going to discuss it here?
Watching the online, Evan?
Yeah.
Okay. Please let us know when we've got somebody who wants to speak. Yeah. So can you promote him?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, thank
Yes,
you.
we can.
Um, thank you. I just had a couple of points. One on the feathers. This is going back, so I apologize. I'll make my point quick. I probably, I seen people use feather signs. In general, I've seen it for like new open businesses. They're trying to bring their new business, so just calling attention. I don't really see a need for a permanent sign, but I do see value in that sort of sign for a temporary sign. So I'll leave it at that. In terms of realtor sign, I would be careful about saying, we're doing this so realtors can self-promote, because then are you going to allow anybody to put up a sign to their business to promote themselves? I'd just be very careful. In the end, the open house sign is to get the person there, right? So
We lost you, Joe.
I think he's buffering right now. Joe, you're buffering.
And I don't think that Joe was given personal experience as to how valuable it was for him.
real to the actual home.
You faded out, Joe. We missed a whole bunch of that.
Oh, I apologize. I'm not. Which part did you guys hear me on the feather sign or no?
We heard you on this feather sign. We heard you
Okay.
up to the point where you said that you have to be careful about self-promotion, which I agree with.
Yeah, I was just saying.
Be internally consistent.
Yeah, people would want to self-promote their lending business or all those different things. I think the open house signs are directional in nature. So I think you need as many signs to get them from the arterial to the home, right? for however many turns there are. I think to me, 6 seems about appropriate to be able to get somebody from maybe an arterial to a more remote spot. But that's my feedback. Thank you.
Thank you.
Isn't that what you suggested? 6?
I'm sorry,
Isn't that what you suggested was 6?
I would suggest 6.
Yep, agreed.
Right.
So do we
Is there a
do we
subcategory?
hear 6 as a direction then, or are there other discussion?
Jean has a question.
Okay.
Do we have a subcategory called event signage?
So that's non-commercial.
Mhm.
That's dealt with differently. And that's actually allowed in, that's another type of sign that is allowed in the right of way. So we'll get to the non-commercial, that comes later.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Anisa.
Okay. All right. If there are any questions on this table on any other sign types,
Change it to 6.
Yeah, are we gonna change? Yeah.
Well, let's change it to 6.
Need to vote, right?
Yeah.
change it to 6. That's the direction we got. Okay. Excuse me. Yeah. Okay. And then if there are no other questions on the remaining chart, then we could go down. Materials and construction. Are there any questions on this?
Oh, I actually did have one other question, and it had with the feather sign, flag or pennant. And we had indicated that was 30 feet was the maximum height. That seems a little over the top. Most other communities are doing it at 12 or 15 feet for the feather signs, flag or pennant. Does anyone have any thoughts on that?
That seems reasonable.
Which,
It's 12 to 15.
12 to 15. Okay.
let's go with the higher 15, just,
Maximum of 15.
okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
Okay. 15 max. Okay.
Here's 17.
Well, let's go to.
All right, so let's go to this section, material and construction just talks about your sign needs to have like even though it's temporary, it needs to be maintained aesthetic and safety, and the sign has to be so some additional standards like sign may be moved, may not move or vibrate, emit noise. So those are some of the safety standards there. Let's go down to the next, so duration. We are adding here that in no case temporary sign to extend above the roof line or the height. So maybe that could be a subcategory and not under duration. But we're talking about like in general, some of the general standards there. And then we have sign placement. So any questions so far on this? Okay. Sign placements and generic sign placement standards. So where your sign can be located, temporary commercial signs are allowed to be placed on private properties. So that's one, and then commercial signs may be placed on right of way when we have specifically identified in this table in another section. And then and that we have discussed before, and then temporary signs cannot be affixed or located on utility poles and all of that. So some of the safety standards here. All right, if there is any question, we can discuss that. Okay, so let's go down. So these are all the standard types, and we have specific standards for each of the sign categories. So let's scroll down, Michelle. So A-frame sign, these are the standards that you already have. We have added this standards in blue that A-frame sign, you can actually put an A-frame sign on a on an adjacent property as well, if your property does not have enough visibility and it has to be coordinated between two property owners. And A-frame signs can also, this also talks about putting that on the adjacent sidewalk as long as you have the sidewalk clearance of 4 feet. And then it sets some standards there. So any questions there?
Let me just point out that currently we limit the signs to be located 12 feet from the entrance of the building. What we're suggesting is 25 feet from the business site. Again, thinking about all those businesses that are in set back from the public right of way in these plazas, et cetera, to give them a little bit more latitude. But we also proposed that if they have limitation on view or a limitation in their farther back and they don't have any other way to do that, that we could apply, we could use the alternative methods standard to consider an exception to that rule. Yes.
We have a computer files like the.
Yes, please.
What was the limit of number of feather signs that we're allowed to put in? It looked like one, but I'm not sure.
No, what we heard from the planning commission is no limit on number. But there is still a limit on the number of days. It is a temporary sign, so it's limited to 60 days.
Oh, okay.
And it's also limited to 15 feet in height.
Okay.
Okay.
I have a question. On the part 5, I guess, the 25 foot within the original business, would it be more beneficial to potentially just say or adjacent property instead of limiting the amount of feet because every business is different?
That's actually a great suggestion.
Be easier to enforce and takes away the 25-foot limit so people aren't out there with measuring tapes.
Okay. So what we would do is we would add the word or another adjacent property.
Instead of the 25-foot limit.
And then adjacent of the business site cut out within 25 feet.
Thank you.
Okay. And then I would say that signs located on properties that are not directly adjacent may be permitted in accordance with alternative methods for compliance. So the concept is you have plaza and you have 3 deep businesses. So the pad to the rear still wouldn't have street visibility if there's an intervening parcel and then the street frontage is the next parcel. So in that particular, I'm actually thinking of a particular business that I'm aware of that would apply to. So
just so we understand the direction clearly, so we are not putting 25 feet anymore, or we are still putting adjacent property and 25 both?
So this is how this section would read, starting with the blueprint. Or another adjacent property of the business site, another property to the business site.
Okay.
And then.
So just delete that 25 feet.
I strike within 25 feet.
Okay.
And then where we have signs located farther than 25 feet from the business, signs located on a parcel that is not directly adjacent may be permitted, and the rest stays the same.
And strike out the, okay.
Yep.
Okay,
Question.
sounds good.
Maybe not interpreting this correctly, but either approach, you still got to get the neighbor's approval.
So if it's located on another property, yes.
So whether it's adjacent or it's 25 feet, we still got to
So-
get the neighbor's approval.
Not necessarily, because we do allow it on sidewalks also, except in specific locations. We have a map that shows specific locations where we do maintenance.
So from the street frontage or the sidewalk frontage, you're 3 deep. Where the business frontage, the guy in the back needs to get approval from the other 2.
I just said no. The answer was no.
Oh,
They don't if they're putting it on the sidewalk. If they're
Oh.
putting it on somebody's private property, of course they have to get permission.
okay.
Yeah, and we have a separate section coming up where we have explicitly mentioned that it has to be with the consent of the property owner. And I think it states the same here with the permission from the property owner.
Sorry, I missed the no part, Lisa.
Okay, sorry.
We got another hand raised.
Selective hearing.
Okay, yes, please.
My comment was, I believe it said there was only one A board allowed. And the consideration I might ask for was if the business is fronting 2 or more, like they get 1 per side of their business that is either fronting a road or a parking lot or a pedestrian path. So that was at least my thought versus just 1 in total. But
So 1 per frontage, is that what you're saying?
yes, but I mean, frontage, I'm considering frontage on a travel way of some sort. So not just a public road, but frontage on a parking lot, frontage on a pedestrian path. So anywhere where a customer frontage on some sort of customer pathway, you would be allowed an A board.
What about frontage per access way? So it could be a driveway, it could be a private street, whatever. If you're being accessed by multiple private streets,
Mhm.
you would potentially want one.
Yeah,
Yep, that's what he's
by
saying.
access way, but I'm just saying it could be a pedestrian access way as well as a vehicle access way. And I'm only bringing this up from a standpoint of our project where we have some wider pedestrian pathways that connect like from a parking lot to a road or and some of those businesses front on that access way. So,
1 per access way.
yep, I'm good with that.
I would like to remind ourselves that A-frame signs are more for pedestrian scale. If you
Agreed.
remember, like way back when we discussed this, like vehicular and pedestrian. So when we are talking about access, I just wanted to clarify that are we talking about pedestrian access or vehicular access?
Both.
Right.
Both.
I mean, I'm fine from our standpoint, in any, I can't think of anywhere where we are only street. So from my standpoint, I'm probably okay with either, but
Yeah, in actuality, our code requires that you have a pedestrian access from the main sidewalk to the entrance. So it doesn't, I think this is absolutely clear from, and I'm going to ask Lance, from your perspective, access way, is that absolutely clear to you? What? Okay. We're getting a nod from the guy who's actually going to be approving the sign permits.
Any other questions on this section?
So where are you making that change then?
It will be on the table. This table is summarizing what's also in the.
Yeah, we will update
We'll
that
have to-
table too.
We will update all of those as well with what we've just discussed here, so.
All right, let's scroll down. So these are all existing language, and then we are into commercial banner or building sign. So these are new standards in blue. And I think part of that we had discussed as part of that table that we discussed before about the duration. We changed that from 60 to 180 days for banner sign per calendar year. And this also has the sign area of 75 square feet and then standards for I-90 corridor. So these are all standards there, and you have seen these standards in that table as well. So if you have any comments, let us know. Okay, let's scroll down. Let's go down. So we are into construction, contractor, and or coming soon sign. So these are all your existing sign. We changed some of those standards as you see in the strike through, and we have added in blue duration, which is now like within 1 year, just to clarify, and then the area and square footage is changed. And then also permit requirement that registration will require. It's not permit, but it's the registration that will require for temporary commercial sign. Any discussion on that?
Now, Lisa, why did you go from 32 to 16 square feet?
So one of the things that we did we've hit in our current sign code, we have a whole bunch of different signs, and they're very internally inconsistent in sizing. We tried to create some consistency in the size of different sign types. So, because again, if it's supposed to be aesthetic, and so I'm going to go back to this because I want to look at this for a second. I want to. So this is consistent. Construction contractor or coming soon signs are the same size as district signs and project real estate signs, because they all kind of are similar in their character, and they'll have the same aesthetic effect. If we're using aesthetics as a justification for our sign code, even though we don't have to be content neutral in the regulations for commercial signs, it behooves us to try and be consistent from an aesthetic standpoint for similar types of signs, even though they're applied in different circumstances. And one of the things that I want to say also is it becomes really important that if we can become kind of consistent with the size of signs in the commercial section, it makes way more sense when we get to the non-commercial section and we just have types of signs, because then we can say, oh, we would apply the same standard in terms of the aesthetics to the non-commercial sign of that type. That's where that was coming from.
And being uniform is less of a distraction.
Exactly.
People are expecting to see a directional sign or informational sign.
Exactly. So that was kind of the thinking, and that was to try and kind of simplify. We had so many standards, so many different standards, trying to make them a little more similar. And it also makes it easier in reviewing things like the construction permit associated with that sign, so that, because it's pretty standardized what the expectation is. Anyhow.
My experience is that this type of sign typically is a 4x8 sheet. Sign makers will take a 4x8 sheet of plywood and paint it up and get it up on 4x4 posts, and it does the job well. That's 32 square feet. We're going down to half of that size.
Again, this applies.
So
This applies in all zones also. So you really want a 32 square foot sign like that in a residential or a mixed use zone?
I think in some areas it's appropriate, like on a construction site. You want exposure. You want to let people know what's going on. I don't know. Bill, what's your thought?
No, I don't disagree. In the very beginning of the project, it's
And
usually raw land at that point.
Yeah, and so, Evan's got somebody online who wants to speak. Joe, please.
Thank you. These are for sure my comments. I mean, one, all the examples in the document are 32 square foot sign. And I do agree with you, Lisa, that it would be, that you try and create some consistency. I personally don't think 32 square feet is too big. And I do agree it's, and I probably have the same comment on the district signage and the project signage, because 4x4 is pretty tiny, right? On a big parcel. And maybe that's something I guess the city could consider is, size of the parcel. But I do think there are a lot in here that I think should go to 32 square foot, and this is one of them.
And so
Thank you.
so the thought would be, if you wanted to go to 32, if you agree with that, then I would recommend, again, this is just me and you tell me what you think about that. If you want to go to 32 square feet for that, then the commercial contractor or coming soon sign, the district sign, and the
Project sign or?
sign, yeah, should all be 32 square feet. But I'm gonna tell you, when you get, if you go in that direction, you're going to also have to allow that for political signs.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the balancing act, because
Why do we have to do that?
because you can't regulate political signs. It's by the sign type. So if we're allowing 32 square feet for these types of signs, we have to allow for the freestanding signs, we have to allow that for political signs also. And again, I'm using that terminology because I want you to understand the implications for non-commercial signs. Somebody's going to use it for their political sign.
Yep.
Well,
Yep.
can we say 16 and up to 32?
That is not different from up to
32.
30, than 30, maximum of 32.
Yeah,
Does,
so if we just say maximum of 32, then we've covered it.
I'm okay with the maximum of 32.
Yeah,
okay.
that's a good idea.
But then I want you to keep that in mind when we get to the, non-commercial signs.
And nobody's going to want to see 32-foot political signs, but if it's fair, then it's fair.
Right, and that's what, so that's kind of that's the balancing act of this, and this is yes, exactly, thank you.
And then
So did you get that, Michelle? So we are going to go to 32 square feet for the commercial contractor or coming soon sign, the district signs and project.
District sign,
Yes.
project realistic sign.
Yes, and for,
Got a comment.
yeah.
Yeah, I think those are the three sign types.
And then.
And then
Um,
also too, we can update the list. I believe it's listed,
Yes, so that's what I was
Mhm.
going back to, was the chart, but we'll have to.
Yeah.
go through those sections. We're also gonna have to update the non-commercial signs to be consistent with that sign type.
okay,
No, that's.
Yep.
okay, right?
That is the maximum.
Okay.
The 32 by 32.
So that's 8x4.
8 by 4. By a big sheet of plywood. Right? You
Get
should-
your
big sheet of plywood.
Yes.
I'd like to play the devil's advocate here. From the aesthetic standpoint, that's an enormous sign. And then what's the sign for? To draw your attention. If we have conceivably during a political season, we have a whole portion of our highways are obstructed by these 4x8 sheets of plywood. I think that's onerous. I would strongly recommend that we go to the 16 4x4 side for everyone. And if they need more for large pieces of property, put up 2.
Well, and here's the thing, here's why I don't like the idea of tying it to property size, because you could have a series of smaller properties that are undeveloped, that it's gonna look exactly the same, whether you, whether it is, that's limited because of the size of that particular lot, it's limited to the 16 square feet versus the property next to it, is not yet divided, so it's got.
And I agree. I'm not to say that's associated with size of the parcel.
Because
it would
it
be
doesn't affect the aesthetics.
Well, that's correct, but from the individual standpoint,
Right.
if you have the ability to put notice out, usually the notice from contractor standpoint is a safety issue, or is a issue of something's coming, or we're going to sell this property, whatever it happens to be. And it's not to be obstruction of the view. It's more towards drawing attention. So I would strongly recommend a smaller size.
Quick break before, just remember from our last meeting, we voted to extend this meeting till 6:30, so we don't have to take another vote so that we can get finished with the sign code. Go ahead.
I'm finished. Thank you.
To piggyback off of your comment, and I don't know the answer to this, is there a way to restrict the size of any sign in the public right of way compared to private property so that you don't necessarily encounter those gigantic political signs? And then the second part to my question is this consistent with what other jurisdictions of our size are doing? Are they going 32 or are they doing 16? Where did the 16 come from?
The 16 came from basically what would be, it was looking at having to be consistent with non-commercial signs. Yes, we could limit those in right of way as a different size, but at the end of the day, those that are not in the right of way, are going to have the same aesthetic impact as those that are in the right of way, and our right of ways vary wildly.
Sure.
What's our current size maximum? 32.
32 is the current one, and you see that it has so struck out, and then 16 is
So how many
proposed.
times have we had an issue that we're debating now that may happen in the future? We haven't. So what problem are we trying to solve here?
Again, I've seen, I don't think that I don't know that we have a limit to political signs size wise. And, other than in the corridor, in the I-90 corridor, but, yeah, I mean, we're talking about, we're opening up, to a lot of billboard signs. We actually have a few billboard signs around the city right now that are, and I mean, that's just a question. Again, I'm not trying to, what I'm saying, and I'm just, 32 is fine. 16 is fine, but let's be internally consistent. And if you feel like 32, if 16 is too restrictive, go to 32. But know that we need to treat non-commercial signs the same way we're treating these signs, because they're a similar type of sign.
Right.
We have a comment from online.
Yeah, I was just, I was trying to make the same point as Tom. I believe this is the current example, and I don't think we've seen some widespread abuse. So I don't think, there would be a reason to shrink it, I guess. So that would be I share Tom's point there. Thank you.
I appreciate what Jean said. If you want more visibility, I appreciate what Jean said. If you want more visibility, put 2 signs up. Put 2. They're going to see the first one. They're going to see the second one. They're going to either get impressed with, wow, this person's really wanting our attention. And then the larger signs do speak to other things that voters, if we're looking at campaigns that voters look at, they might look at it as negative. Look at this guy or gal with a big old sign. I don't know if I want that person because I kind of know what that person's about, even though they don't. But, having 2 signs, you have more bang for your buck, and it's not as obtrusive to some. And
We don't have to settle this tonight. I think that we've got a good conversation going
Yeah.
here. Let's put a note that's 16 or 32, but let's be consistent. That's all, that's my only point here. So we can hammer out the details.
Good idea.
Let's keep going.
Right, sounds good. So let's scroll down. So we have other signs, district sign, and let's stick to that map for a second, Michelle. So we had so we talked about survey before. So we had two different sign types that we sent out for public opinion. One is the project real estate sign, and one is the district identity sign. So the difference between the two is that when you have a subdivision process going on, then you want to have your property sale sign or some welcoming sign within the subdivision. But if you still want to market your district identity, which is not developed yet, then it could still be placed on the undeveloped property. So those are two signs that we are talking about here. So Michelle, if you scroll up now, scroll up. Yeah. Yeah, so these are two signs that we have standards for. So a project real estate sign and district sign is located. So we have a bunch of standards here. One sign per frontage, and then again the size, we can discuss this more. If you decide 16 versus 32, then this will change as well. Duration for this, so we have 10 years here, because I think the challenge the city has is that some of the sign is placed there and then they stay there for too long and then become non-conforming. So we were proposing that having a longer time span might be like more appropriate for to eliminate the non-conformance of the sign. Let's go to the next one and then we can come back to discussion. So yeah, the temporary project real estate sign. So this is the project real estate sign. This is where we are talking about again one sign per frontage road. So here you could have like multiple frontage road and signs there. Size will change. And then again, this is 10 years and development phases. So when you apply for this sign, you generally, when somebody comes to the pre-plat application, you have phases identified. So when you apply for the sign, you have the phases identified in your sign application. So you can show that your phase 1 and phase 2 would have the real estate sign, and then phase 3 would have the district identity sign. So that's where this signage proposal is. Any questions on that?
Joe Frank has a comment. Joe.
Thank you. We already had the conversation on size, so I won't speak to that. I guess my request would be that some consideration given to, very large projects. Because you could have 2 miles of frontage and be allowed one sign on one road. So I just asked for consideration. Maybe I think in my notes I put, have to be 750 feet away, but you could allow more than one per frontage if there's, extreme distance along that frontage. So I'd like that to be considered. I probably don't see a substantial difference between the two signs. I would probably be more in favor of trying to give the project some more flexibility to meet their needs within some sort of square footage limit and sign size limit, rather than try and break them up. That's just I don't know if that makes sense, or if anyone has a question on that comment, but
Well,
that would be my.
If I could respond a little bit just on the two signs, they are extremely similar in nature. The regulations are pretty much the same. but the difference is that a project sign would could remain throughout the entire build out of that project. Whereas a temporary project real estate sign is, we want it removed once all the lots have been sold in that area. And I'm gonna give an example.
That's fair. That's fair.
And it's not here in Liberty Lake, but I live out in Eagle Ridge, and there's still a sign out there that says that they're still selling, even though it's all built out. Now they've got adjacent subdivisions going in, but the sign is still there on 195, and it probably will never come down because there's no one requiring them to take it down.
So I agree with that point, Lisa, and I completely share that they should be taken down. The only on the district sign, it talks about, being allowed on undeveloped phases, right? So for us in River District, we're trying to put that district sign on Mission and or some of those roads. And in a lot of cases, those portions are done, and we're trying to get people to come into the project and get to those undeveloped phases. So it's not helpful if I can only put it on the undeveloped phase, but I can't get them there, so to speak, right? So that would be.
Go ahead.
No, that would be my concern with how it's drafted today.
Okay, and again, a point, I know that the planning commission has all your comments.
Yeah, perfect.
Let's put a note in this to revisit this question. I don't think we're going to resolve it today.
Yeah.
I also want to note for the planning commission that permanent subdivision or neighborhood identification signs are actually covered in non-commercial signs. So I just want to be clear on that. But
I would like to add one point to this, Lisa, if I may.
Yes, please.
So our legal advice was that when a district sign is placed on a project real estate sign or vice versa, then it becomes off-premise sign, because when you're putting your sign on the property where your sale is happening, that is on premise. But if you have a sale sign on the undeveloped portion of the property, then it becomes off-premise sign. So just to keep that in mind as well.
Thank you. That's helpful also.
All right. So should we move on? Let's scroll down. Okay, so this one is so the real estate sign for commercial and industrial. So this is an example, and these are all existing regulations. We just clarified some, and then have some additional content there. So no major change in general. If you have any questions there, we can discuss.
Again, I'm going to point this out that, again, the project, the various signs that we talked about previously, the 16 square feet is based upon this. And so again, if we're going to allow that for coming soon sign, it should be the same meal deal, right? So again, I want to note that this is another one where we need to be consistent.
Thank you. Let's scroll down. So now we are into commercial and industrial. Can you scroll up a little bit, Michelle? So this is talking about commercial industrial wall window sign examples. So let's go down. So these are all your existing standards, and we just have a few additional ones. So let's scroll down. This is more of a temporary sign registration requirement.
So I want to explain the context to this. For it to be a temporary sign, we have to put a time limitation on it. We can't enforce against a time limitation if we don't have a date for when it went into effect. The registration is simply a way to track dates for any temporary signs. I do want to be clear on that. And that, it's not gonna, we're not using it. There is also the opportunity to do permanent window signs. So there's temporary window signs and permanent window signs. So that's, those are two different things. But if you're doing temporary window signs, that was the thought.
All right, let's scroll down. So real estate sign, freestanding sign. So let's scroll down. So this is the most typical sign that we see for real estate sales. Most of those are existing, and we just clarified the square footage from 5 to 6 square foot, like Lisa mentioned, so that we're consistent with other 6 square foot areas. We have added sign to be located, so it's maybe located in the right of way. So this is similar standards, like directly adjacent to the property. So some of those clarification there. And then also the temporary sign registration requirement. Any discussion on that?
So we have sign permits and sign registration.
Yeah, so the difference between the two is a sign registration. Somebody just goes online.
Okay.
And I'm not ever gonna touch it unless I get a complaint. Oh my gosh, this sign has been up for blah, 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 long, and I'll be able to go back and look, and if it's outside of what we allow and it's registered, they'll have to take it down. That's the point of it. If we're gonna regulate time, because it's a temporary sign, there's no way to do that unless you have a timestamp of some sort.
I don't know.
Right.
I
have a
don't,
question,
one moment,
Lisa.
yeah, thank you. I don't know how this would be handled. I think it would probably be pretty easy. I live in an HOA and we do not allow these type of signs erected anywhere on our property.
That's your CCNRs, and that's a private contract between you and your
Exactly.
owners.
What I'm stating or attempting to is can there be something in there that says if it's private property or an HOA, if you would consult with whomever, so that it lets them know, because as soon as we say no, they go back to the law of the land that's by the city.
We do that on a number of our permits where we say that if you are located within an HOA, you need to check with your HOA. But we can't enforce your CCNRs, so we're not going to check it. We just have a disclaimer that you need, that you should check with your HOA.
Yeah, and what we do is we remove it, and we call them before we remove it and give them some time to remove it. If not, we do remove it. So just if something, when you're going through the registration, maybe say, check with if it's on an HOA property.
We can put that on the form.
You don't
Not
have to enforce
touching
it.
we're
We
not
will
touching
enforce it.
registration unless we get a complaint.
Yeah, well, we won't complain. We'll just remove it. Yeah, okay, good.
Let's go to the real estate directional sign, open house directional sign. I think we had some discussion already in the chart, but let's scroll down. So not much has changed. Is again some of the clarification, and we struck out and consistency to 6 square foot. And this is an exempt, generally so if you remember the exempt section, this would be a permit exempt sign, but they would still have to comply with the requirements that are stated here.
Okay, moving on.
All right, let's move on.
Quick question about item F. In the time limits, I know Mr. Frank may agree with me on this one, that many times in new construction, you have open houses every day. And limiting it to 10 days in any 30-day period is somewhat restrictive. Because they're holding those houses open every single day, and they're putting open house signs out every day. So I think we got to take another look at that.
Especially if it's a model home.
Yeah, especially for a model home, yeah.
Okay, so we'll make a note of that and we'll come back to it then.
Okay,
Okay. Sponsorship sign, we had discussed that in the chart before, that there was a question about whether it should be 80% or not. So we changed that to the entire fence area, but there are some additional standards here. This is mostly talking about the sign has to be within the premise, and it's intended to be directed to the visibility of the general public. I mean, people who are inside that. So that's the intent.
Anita,
A sign should be.
We've got
Yeah,
Phil
go.
from the hub, who'd like to speak on this point.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you all looking into these sponsorship signs. So just a little verbiage discrepancy from the permanent signs. It says signs are directed to the general public inside the facility and are not intended to be visible to the general public outside the facility. On the temporary, it says they are not directly visible to the general public outside the facility. So I guess, you know, kind of depending on where you're at on somebody else's property,
Right.
you can go find, oh, I can see that sign, they have to take it down. So can we have the language?
Yeah, so I think that we just hadn't gotten to this section yet, but it needs to be consistent with the permanent sponsorship signage
Thank you.
language. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good catch.
All right. Any other discussion on this section? Okay, let's move on. Stake sign. And again, we are in this, so these are new standards, maximum 120 days, and then these are commercial stake signs. So sign placement standards, and then square footage area, 6 square feet for consistency, height, and maximum number of sign faces per sign is 2. So yeah. And then these would not be off premise. So any questions on that? Okay, let's go. Yeah.
Yes, we do have one.
Could you repeat? this?
Okay.
I didn't see.
Can you repeat the size again?
6 square
feet.
Which is again consistent, this, trying to be consistent about these things, consistent with real estate signs, consistent with, and again, the 6 feet came from, it used to be 5 feet, but it came from the fact that a standard real estate sign today is 6 square. So we upped that, and so we are increasing everything else to the same standard because it's the same aesthetic.
Could this also apply now to our previous discussion about sizing? Because that's a handsome looking sign. I mean, it looks.
For stake signs? You want a stake sign that's larger than?
No, I'm asking, is that appropriate? Apply that as well.
To go from a 6-foot sign to a 32 square foot sign for a stake sign?
Yeah.
Oh, downsize it to 5 square feet? The size is 6 feet.
Okay, I guess we should address it.
I'm not understanding your question.
Okay, I can't express it clearly enough. I'll just pass on.
So, well, how would you like us to change it?
I wouldn't change. My question is, does this apply, or could we apply this to our other sign as well? When we were talking about making the signs go from 32 down to 16.
That was a specific type of sign. Those were real estate signs. These are simple stake signs. They're the kind of things that we're constantly, so they're the type of things that you see when somebody replaces your roof. And we allow that on premise, but we don't allow it off premise.
Thank you.
All right. Let's scroll down. Feather sign, flag or pennants, we had that discussion already. Anything specific on this section?
No searchlights. You're no fun.
So what's interesting is that we actually had searchlights previously we allowed them as a temporary thing in our lighting standard and we changed that. I do want to say though, that I think that we probably need to be more specific, in terms of the definition of this. And we do allow for accent lighting, and I would just reference the where accent lighting is allowed for signage, and it's not really applicable for temporary signs, but it is potentially applicable for permanent signs. People do some accent lighting, and we do have standards specific to that in our lighting standard. So I think that we just differentiate between accent lighting and spotlights or searchlights.
Yeah, Michelle, you need to change the limit on feather signs.
Yeah, we have a note already. They're gonna go
I know,
through.
she was just doing it, so.
Yeah. We will, so we took the notes on the table and then we will just make the rest consistent.
Exactly. Yeah, I have this little note to remind myself to go down there and make those updates. Yeah. Thank you, though. Appreciate it.
One of the things we haven't addressed are these balloon signs where a balloon is 50, 60 feet above with pennants. We have one RV park that does.
We prohibit inflatables. They're prohibited sign type, I'm quite certain.
That's an inflatable? I
That's
thought
an
inflatable were the ones that had the air blowing.
Well, no, it applies to it
Oh.
applies to the inflatable man, but it also applies to those.
Okay. There's just one RV dealer I know has two balloons up almost every day.
I thought those were on the RV dealer that's on the other side of the line.
Well, it could be. They appear to be. Okay, when I come on Aladdin.
I know the answer to that.
Yeah.
Who has the balloons? Is it the RV dealer in the city of Liberty Lake or outside the city of Liberty Lake?
I'm not paying too much attention to them.
I understand. Okay, no, I think you've addressed it. Okay.
All right. So, are there any other questions or discussion on this section? Okay, let's go down, scroll down, window sign. These are some generic temporary window sign standards. Okay, so we are down to the non-commercial design standards, non-commercial sign standards. So we are done with commercial, and then with non-commercial, the major premise is that this is content neutral, what Lisa has mentioned and we have presented to you before. So these are going to be content neutral, and still these are going to be two categories, permanent and temporary. And this also is related to speech sign, and then but still would have to obtain related permits. So this is talking about all those generic requirements. And then let's go to table 16, where we have all the charts of the non-commercial signs, permanent non-commercial signage.
And I just want to make a comment just generically that, and I've said this before, but I want to be, again, there was a thought about trying to be consistent in sizes with the types of commercial signs that we have. So there was some real thought put into making sure that we had internal consistency there. So so if we change it in the commercial side, we'll want to change it here.
Yeah, so these are all sign types, permanent sign types, exterior bulletin board, and then a non-commercial monument sign, non-commercial monument sign in non-residential zone versus residential zone. So we have certain different standards for which zone those are located. Non-commercial wall sign in non-residential zone and non-commercial wall sign in residential zone. And then we added a couple of categories. One is placemaking sign for blade sign and placemaking sign for wall sign. So those are some of the input that we received from the stakeholders about some placemaking for new developments. So we have added those standards as well. So should we go through this table, or should we go through each individual section?
Move on.
Okay, we can go to each section then.
Yes, please.
Okay, so permanent non-commercial signs, so we have listed this signs that we just talked about. The bulletin board sign is an example, and these are the standards that you already have in your code, so no major change there. And then non-commercial monument signs, so non-commercial monument signs, so here is something to think about, that we have monument sign in the commercial and non-commercial. So non-commercial would be more like the residential type, and yeah, so we are looking at, but the permit process or requirements or aesthetics should be pretty similar. We just don't, you just don't want to regulate through content, so that's the major one. On premise, non-commercial monument signs, so we have some generic standards there. Any questions on that so far? Okay.
I need to interrupt a moment. We have a decision to make. We've only got 5 minutes remaining. Do we extend or do we finish this later? And we have to make a decision.
I suggest we continue on and finish this up, because we're close to the end.
We're close to the end. We have another workshop scheduled for in October. And I think that getting to the end of this with the notes will help us set the agenda for what we want to talk about at that meeting.
So we need a motion to extend the meeting by 15 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever.
So moved.
You have to give me some minutes.
I recommend that we extend the meeting by 15 minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you.
All right, so we will go through real quick and then just give you an overview, and then you can have your notes and then come back. We'll come back to it. So let's go to the non-commercial wall sign, and all of these are new standards. So it's just referring to the chart, and then also permitted not to exceed certain maximum one sign of 20 square feet. So that's the standard that you already have. Let's go to the placemaking sign. That is the new signage standards. And placemaking sign, we have so placemaking is a new category where you have a district and where your sign could differentiate this as a new district. And we have some sign categories. If you scroll down, Michelle. So we have blade sign, monument sign, and wall sign. So 3 different signs for placemaking. But these are different standards than the standards that you had already seen under blade sign, monument sign, and wall sign categories. So we are proposing for placemaking blade sign to be larger than the regular blade sign, because this would be more visible. And blade signs are generally for pedestrian scale, like people are walking on the sidewalk and they see that. But this is a placemaking sign, so they can be up higher and then larger. So the standards are different here. Let's go through the placemaking wall sign. So placemaking wall signs, again, I mean, it's more wall area than your generic wall sign that we had discussed before. And again, this is not commercial, this is placemaking, so this is non-commercial. This just highlights the district identity. So this would have a little bit more area allowance here. Any questions on placemaking signs so far? Okay. Let's go down to city gateway sign. So we included gateway sign because we already have one. And then it's good to have some standards there. And also, I mean, these gateway signs would be city approved and within the city easement. So there's some generic standards there.
So I have a comment, and I'm just curious if anyone else agrees with me. But I'm not sure that we need a different standard, or as opposed to just saying that this is a type of non-commercial monument sign.
Sounds good.
I agree.
Okay. So we will delete any specific standards and refer to the non-commercial monument sign standards. Yeah. That simplifies it. Okay, and then so now we are on to temporary non-commercial signs. So we just discussed permanent. So temporary, again, it would be under registration requirements, similar to what you have seen under commercial temporary. Let's scroll down. So these are the temporary non-commercial A-frame, light pole banners. Scroll down. Stake sign, temporary banner, temporary freestanding, and temporary window sign. So let's also go through each of those sign categories instead of discussing here, so you'll have a better understanding. So some of the general material and construction height requirements, sign placement, generic standards for temporary sign, and then let's go down. Scroll down. Yeah, so let's see. So these are the sign types: A-frame, banner, stake, temporary. And so let's go through each of the signs. These are all new language here. So A-frame sign. So in terms of size, they're going to be the same. So commercial A-frame and non-commercial A-frame size is not going to be a bit different. So it's just the language is here. Let's scroll down. I think light pole banners, that's something I wanted to bring up because this is something that you can only have under non-commercial because this is public utilities and these are the light poles that sometimes you have seen cities, they use this for their economic purposes or events. So we have added some standards here. So sign placement standards is light pole banner standards. So take a look and let us know if you have any questions. Should
Probably
we discuss?
that you should be
Go
aware
ahead.
is that most of the poles, light poles, are owned by Avista, and they do have standards for that. Some of them are HOA owned. And so in the case of HOA owned light poles, we're just saying that it has to be approved by the owner and it has to meet their standards. That's the how we're handling that. Sorry.
Under light poles, banners, Romanet 3, under B, it says, the banner sign must adhere to 6 for general sign. What does that mean?
Adhere to 6 for general. So yeah, we have to look into that. That might be the section that we were referring to.
Okay.
Good catch.
As it relates to your statement about utility poles in HOAs, you said the owner has the authority to decide what goes on it. So in our HOA, Avista owns the utility pole.
So and I know that, so here's the deal with Avista. Avista will allow signs, but only if they're owned by the city, and that's how they've gotten around it. I'm not sure if they would have the same standard for private streetlights, but you'd have to have that conversation with Avista. So that's sure.
All right, let's scroll down. So I just wanted to point out that we struck out community event sign because that is, so in terms of content neutrality, that
it's not
is not a. Yeah, go ahead, Lisa.
Thank you.
All right, so and then stake sign, again, I mean, this is non-commercial, so size-wise, those are going to be the same. So it's just location for stake signs are a little bit more flexible. Stake sign can be located on the right of way, provided it does not block the sidewalks. And then stake sign shall be located within shall not be located. So it's safety standards as well. So should not be on the roundabouts, or should not block any visibility, things like that. Let's scroll down.
I have one question here,
Yeah.
and a question specifically because probably the most prevalent type of campaign sign we see are stake signs. And so the question is, a duration of 120 days. Is that considered adequate to accommodate political campaign signs?
Why don't you go a period before and a period after the
You
election?
because you can't regulate political campaign signs.
No way.
You can't, you can, we can regulate the type of sign.
We're regulating the duration here.
We're regulating the duration for a sign type. So content neutrality for non-commercial speech, content neutrality means we regulate time, place, and manner for the type of sign that it is.
Again,
So you define temporary as basically 4 months.
So
Well,
we
you're
could
going
do it
3
months or 180 days or something like that. But here's the other thing, and this is, there's case law on this. And I'll give you a great example. There are certain political signs that long after the election, people keep up because they're making a political statement. And they're allowed to do that. That's called free speech.
suppose.
Okay, but 90 days doesn't work when we have a primary and a general.
That's what I'm saying. 90 days doesn't work if we have a primary and agenda. Does 120? Or should we be looking at 180 days? And I'm not really,
Well, filing was Phil, May,
that's what I'm asking the question.
May to November. So that's 5 months.
So that's 150
So-
days.
Sounds like 150 days to me.
Let's,
It's way too long.
I agree, but it's got, they all have to be taken down within,
But again, we have to have a period of time. And if somebody is running both in a primary, yeah. I know this.
it's got to be from filing until the election. So
I mean, you want to accommodate, you want to provide reasonable accommodation for people to express.
well, they're up all year anyway. So
It, right,
So are we hearing 150 days then?
yes.
yeah,
Okay.
May 50 days. Phil's saying that's too long. Is that what you're saying?
Well, you just, you can't limit it, so.
Well, you can limit the time, but it's,
Mhm.
you can limit the time for that type of sign, but you have to consider what the impact is for what those signs are used for.
Understand.
So I'm just asking,
You can't stop putting up the signs for the primary. I know where he's coming from. If we could only have signs for a general, that would certainly make it less.
but it also makes it. less
Then you don't have
democratic.
the opportunity to know the information for the primary.
You doing okay over there?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm doing okay.
Okay.
So I said 150 days. I did the math.
Okay.
Well
Great.
Oh, my goodness.
Okay, so what's the direction here? 150 days?
150 days.
Yes, please.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you. Let's scroll down. So temporary banner sign, yeah, so we have some language here. We might want to change that image though.
That's
And then
it was the only image I Googled images and was the only one that was really actually a banner.
yeah, I know. I like that banner in general, but it's like, yeah, we understand and that it's not a banner that's yeah.
Yeah, I will find a better. So,
Okay, thank you.
but I also
Thank
thought it
you.
was funny.
Point.
Yes, DG.
I do.
All right, so let's go to the temporary freestanding sign. So we have a bunch of standards there. It's mostly duration, size standards. So we'll make all of them consistent, but similar standard size-wise that we have to make. Temporary window sign. Yeah, so that's the end of the non-commercial, and then we come to the administration and enforcement. So I can give you a quick overview of this section unless you have any questions in the previous sections.
I want to give just a context statement first. So currently our non-conforming rules would apply to signs as non-conforming structures. However, the intent again is your sign code should almost be standalone. best practices are to have your definitions in your sign code and to also have this. So this is kind of a restatement specific to signs of what we already have. So,
Seems to be fair.
so Anisa, with that,
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Lisa. So yeah, basically non-conforming sign standards. So we added this new section. So when we looked at other jurisdictions codes, I mean, many jurisdictions have non-conforming sign standards. So that's something we have added. And then let's scroll down, and then we have maintenance and removal. So that gives you tool to have sign removal. Right now, the sign code doesn't have any authority to have like old sign or non-conforming sign. So there's no, I mean, legal non-conforming is fine, but then illegal signs. So how do you address those? So those are the sign removal section will address that. Let's go down. So it's categorized in permanent and temporary,
but
and then
we have,
expired.
can we pause for a second question?
Who's the zoning?
Yeah.
So who, that would be Juan.
Okay.
Was there a question for us too?
It was a question
Crystal?
for me. They were just asking who the zoning administrator is. It's defined in the definition section, it's defined as the director for planning, engineering and building services but now we're gonna have to change that because we're back to community development. So this was to avoid the need to do that. So now that we changed the definition, we only have to change the definition and not throughout the entire development code.
All right, let's scroll down. So this one is also talking about expired sign, like you remember some of the signage time frame, that 30 days to even 10 years that we have proposed. So this section will address that. And then let's scroll down, expired invalid temporary sign registration and recovery of removed signs. So we have added those specific tools for the city to administer this. And then enforcement, city already has a section in the code. We're just tying back to that section. It's like, this is how you can enforce. That way your sign code is complete in terms of administration and enforcement as well. So that's basically it. I know that we had gone super fast on this, but really open to input.
Any questions, comments?
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Lisa, for getting us through this.
Very thorough. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for your time. I know it's been a long day for you, but thank you. Appreciate it.
Another good job. Thanks.
All right.
Thanks. We're gonna sign off now.
Thanks again.
Bye.
To citizen comments, do you have any citizen comments present? Any online? All right, we'll move on to report, Secretary's report.
So I have a couple things quickly to cover. Number one, I wanted to, and I talked to Joe about this in advance of this meeting, and I want to say this for the benefit of the entire group, that we are not going to rush this process. It has been rushed for even staff's review on it. We don't feel like it's ready for prime time yet. I think that these are good conversations. I think we'll use the comments that were made to kind of do an outline of what we want to discuss at the next meeting. I'm going to move the other item on that meeting and make the entire meeting about sign code. Once we get through that, we will take that input, get the draft, and then staff is going to do some testing of it. And we're also going to take it out to the stakeholder group and really get some additional feedback. I think that there are some things, this is a massive code. It's more complicated than we think it's more complicated than it needs to be. It does need to be streamlined, and we'll have some conversations with you about how we think that can be done. But again, for the average person who needs to access this, to have to go through 70 pages of code
is brutal. And so I want to have those conversations. I also want to make sure that we have given the stakeholders adequate time to look at a cleaned up version of this and give us more feedback. So we'll bring it back. We need to workshop this more is my point, and we need to engage the public more is my point. And so I really wanted you to know that Amy and Lance and I really want to slow this down a little bit to make sure that we're not just checking a box here. We want to get it right. And the city has suffered through this sign code for almost 25 years. It's time that we cleaned it up and made it more user-friendly. So that's probably the biggest statement. The other thing I wanted to say is I've had one person on Planning Commission express interest in participating in the capital facilities plan work group. And I'm just wondering if anybody else has any interest, we can bring it back to the whole body, or if it's probably going to be, I can't think that it would be more than 5 or 6 meetings. And then it will come back to the whole body, obviously, but we've got a lot of, like the parks plan, like the network analysis, we've got a lot of these different studies that are inputs into that. And then we have to kind of put it into the 20-year capital facilities plan and make sure that it is fiscally constrained. So that's a big undertaking. And so just asking if there are any other volunteers, let me know and we can bring it. Okay. So
Yes.
all right. So at our next meeting, maybe I will, I'm gonna leave it out there. I'm gonna leave it out there and then I'm gonna ask you to vote on it like you would for design review or chairmanship or whatever. Is that fair?
Fair.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Those were my big things. We'll clean up this schedule a little bit to recognize that we've got things going on. Your next, we will be reporting out on the draft network analysis at your next workshop. So that's going to be an exciting one. It's exciting for me. Maybe not for you. But I mean, we'll have the results of the build out analysis and we'll have some good conversation about what the options are.
Thank you. Planning Commission reports, anyone? Our next meeting is September 24. I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
And second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you all.